Drive Podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Outdoor Drive Podcast. It is episode 198. We are 2 away from 200. Yet what we're going to do on 200, we don't know yet, but something good, I promise you, something good. It might just be me and Steve. You guys might enjoy it, you might not. I don't really care. It is what it is. We're flying through the trees of the Outdoor Drive, dude. This was a killer podcast. This is your boy East Coast Trev, and I'm joined by my good buddy, Mr. Madman Mardick.
What up?
What up, buddy?
Here.
You're here.
I feel like a professional today with my own little podcast device.
You got your own little thing going on over there,
my
bro.
Own little studio, dude.
Yeah, chilling. I love it, bro. Absolutely cool, man. That was a cool podcast, dude. I had a lot of fun, man. I knew it was gonna be good, dude. Watching Casey throughout, social media and stuff. It's just so cool. I love falconry. Always been a thing on my mind, but as all of you guys all know, I have way too many things going on in life. If I could have a bird, I totally would do it. I might even look into it. I don't know. Could you know how cool that would be, bro? I would give up everything. I think I would give up deer season. I'd give up deer season if I had a bird.
I was trying to figure out how I could use one for deer season. Like, if I could get a hawk to catch a big buck for me, I might get into that.
You need a golden eagle, I guess, would be like the only end all be all.
I'll start saving my pennies now.
Yeah, right.
I heard they're not cheap.
No, $10,000. But I don't even know if legally Connecticut would allow you to have one. But whatever, it is what it is.
Who's gonna tell you can't? No one's gonna fuck with you if you have a golden eagle.
Yeah, right. Just send it out.
You can't. Government shows up at your house, says you can't have that. You just sick the golden eagle on them. Get out of here. Get off my lawn.
It's like having a King Corso, dude. But of the birds, right? Like, who cares? It's all good. Let's get through the normal housekeeping. Let's sweep up the corners, dude, and we can get on with this podcast. What do you think, bro?
Do it up.
All right. HuntworthGear.com, dude. The best camo. Get more for less with Huntworth. I cannot wait until deer season to get my heat boost up and running, dude. I really can't, honestly. Like, I'm super excited about it. If it tailed up whatever it did during turkey season to bring it into deer season, we've already hunted one season with it. I just can't wait to get back into it. Nor'easter Game Calls, nor'eastergamecalls.com. They are the official calls of the Outdoor Drive podcast. Some of the best grunt tubes on the market. There is some on the website right now as we speak. The rest of them will be up at Huntstock, up at the Wildwood Farm. Mark will be there with a table right next to us with all of the grunt tubes. I think he's bringing close to 50 of them. If you're going to be there, that's the place to get them. They're not going to last. I promise you that. There is a bunch of turkey calls still left. You guys can be practicing and doing things with those. Crow calls, it all. Hit on over to Nor'easter Game Calls and get them in close. Also, last but not least, Bowhunters United, bowhuntersunited.com. The advocates for the bow hunting world, they are the best. There is a link below here in the podcast. You can click on that, sign up, and we get a little bit of kickback to keep the show going here at the Outdoor Drive. And they also bring you news for your cruise. I'm going to bring it right over to my good buddy, Mr. Mike Salter, on News for Your Cruise.
All right, guys, why don't we buckle up and see what's going on in the world of news with Mr. Mike Salter.
Hey everyone, we're going to kick this one off with a couple updates on recent news items. First in Nebraska, where the Game and Parks Commission has approved the recommendations for the 2024 mountain lion hunting season, which opens up the newly established Nearaba unit. The commission also approved changes to the river otter trapping season and changes to sport fishing regulations that allow archery paddlefish permit holders to harvest paddlefish below the Gavin's Point Dam. Then in Utah, where the Wildlife Board approved changes to upland game and waterfowl hunting, including making it illegal to harvest trumpeter swans and allowing electronic duck stamps. Now to Michigan, where the Natural Resources Commission approved the deer regulations for the next 3 years. Regulation changes include reinstating the 4-point antler restriction on the restricted tag of the deer combo license for 19 lower peninsula counties. Hunters participating in the Liberty Hunt for youth and disabled hunters will now be allowed to harvest more than one deer, with the 1 buck limit remaining, but hunters will be allowed to pursue multiple antlerless deer. The Upper Peninsula CWD surveillance zone has been removed, which means hunters can resume baiting and feeding. The Hunter's Choice antler point restrictions have been reinstated as well in that CWD surveillance zone. The proposal to allow crossbows in the late archery season in the UP was rejected, and the proposal to reinstate antlerless harvest opportunities in several northern deer management units using archery equipment was also rejected. Now to Iowa, where a year-round open season on raccoons has been started. While the season will be continuously open, during the time of year outside the fur harvester season, only firearms, cage traps, and dog-proof traps will be legal. Methods of take. Now for an action alert in Florida, where the budget passed with a line item for $200,000 for Florida to become a financial partner of the Southeast Deer Partnership. Florida's contribution will be returned dollar for dollar to the state as a public education campaign about the critical role white-tailed deer and deer hunting play in conservation. The governor is expected to veto a large number of line items in this budget, and support is needed for the funding in line 1899 of the budget. To take action and support this funding, there is a direct action link on the National Deer Association's website. Now for some national legislation. The Youth Coastal Fishing Program Act of 2023 has been proposed, which would create a grant program within NOAA for projects to take children fishing in the ocean and Great Lakes, with priorities given to projects that serve underserved communities. This legislation is in line with the American Sport Fishing Association's goal of introducing new anglers, especially young people, to recreational fishing. The bill would provide $2 million in grants over each of the next 5 years, and you can contact the legislators to support this legislation through the ASA's Keep America Fishing Action Alert. Lastly, a couple of opportunities. First, in Vermont, where the Missisquoi National Wildlife Refuge Junior Waterfowl Hunting Training Program is being offered to young hunters who want to learn more about waterfowl hunting and experience a high-quality waterfowl hunt. The program is offered to those 12 to 17 who have an adult waterfowl hunter to serve as a mentor. Mentors in use who would like to participate must pre-register with the refuge by August 4th, and the program is limited to 30 participants. All youth hunters and mentors will also need to attend a one-day training session starting at 8 a.m. on August 19th at Franklin County Sportsman's Club in St. Albans. Now to Massachusetts, where the Division of Wildlife and Fisheries is holding several Learn to Fish events, which are free and open to all skill levels. Equipment will be available to borrow, and no license is required to participate. The upcoming events are on June 17th in Stoneham, June 22nd in Worcester, June 24th in Boston, June 29th in Grafton, and July 6th in Gardner. Pre-registration is required and can be done on the department's Learn to Fish website. And Montana, where the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks is running a best fishing photo and art contest to be featured on the front and back covers of the 2024 regulation booklet. They want you to think outside of the brag board and are looking for unique and unusual photos. The photos must be vertical, minimum resolution and size of 6 inches tall at 300 pixels per inch. Selected photos will include the angler's name, so specify how you like that to be credited. Include a short description of the photo because they will be providing captions. Do not send any photos of mounted fish, and photos must be taken in Montana. Kids 12 and younger are also invited to submit a colored drawing of fish that live in Montana, and the deadline for submissions is October 15th and can be submitted to fwpphotocontest@mt.gov. Also, don't forget to click on the Outdoor Drives affiliate link in the episode description to sign up for Bow Hunters United and preserve and expand your bow hunting rights. As always, if you have any news to send along to me, it'd be greatly appreciated. Reach out to me at Mike Salter on Facebook or bearded_bowhunter21 on Instagram. And with that, enjoy the rest of your ride.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you, buddy. As always, always on time with some great news with the things going on in the world. You guys pay attention to that. Bow Hunters United, always giving them good stuff and advocating for that. Bow Hunters United, you can, if there's something going on in your state and you need something written, Bow Hunters United will actually write it for you. You can send it off to your people and get that stuff all worked out. They are very good at that, and there's a lot of really good things that come along with that, so we appreciate those guys. What is up, dude? Anything good, man? You've been putting out cameras or what, Madman? Oh,
Yes.
shoot. Actually, hold on. Time out. Do you have a Killer's Corner this week?
No, we got
Okay.
some non-killing mofos in that group right now, so you boys better step it up.
Man.
Come on, I need to see some dead shit because it's been a little dry this week, but it's all right. We're all in that phase right now. This is that time of the year.
Well, with it being dry and everything, on our YouTube channel, guys, we have a ton of good hunts that are totally trickling their way through the YouTube. We have Mark's hunt, my hunt, Justin's hunt, Steve's hunt, all great turkey kills on film that are on our YouTube page. And then not only that, but there is I'm going to drop the night coyote hunt coming here in the next couple of days that we did with the 207 boys at 207 Outfitters up in Maine. Really cool hunt. I'm going to drop that here probably midweek, weekend, whatever, here in the next couple of days. So make sure to tune on that. Hit the subscribe and the notification button there on YouTube also. So those are some cool hunts. So we'll call those our Killer's Corner. What do you say?
How's the fishing been, though, speaking of that, man?
Fishing is insane.
I don't see you in no Killer's Corner, but I know you're killing them fish.
Yeah, well, the thing is that we just try to keep the eyes off of what we got going on. Fishing season is absolutely phenomenal. The bait has rolled in. Biggest fish to date right now, 44 pounds. I had a fishing trip the other day. We had a ton of fish. 44, 43, 42, bunch of 30s. Great fish piled into the rivers in this migration with sea lice. Real big fish. And they're starting to show up, and the bait's here. So it's strumming to be a very good spring run. I'm looking forward to seeing what else we got. I mean, some mid to high 40s being caught already. So I'm waiting to break that 50 pounds. Mike had one today. It was right around 50 inches. So pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I usually wait. I watch social media. When I see the 50s rolling, that's when I dust out the rod.
See, the thing is though, and this is where your problem lies, bud.
I'm not a fisherman.
Don't chase the report, make the report. I mean,
you gotta make
it. You got to make the report, dude. You never chase the report. You make the report. Get out there and do it. It's just like deer hunting. Make the report. Don't chase it. Like, oh, the rut's on. No, you want to be there when the rut's on. Don't chase it.
Right.
It's just like those deer, man. When we're after a big whitetail, nobody knows because we're making that report, and you guys are chasing that report. That's just the way it's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you ain't gotta tell me, but I'll tell you what. I finally shook off the I got the turkey out of my system.
Did you?
And now I'm switching into that whitetail.
It's velvet season now. It's picking up who's who. You know what I'm saying?
I had something stuck in front of my camera the other day that made me go, "Ooh, what's that?"
Is it him?
And that I don't think it. It's not him, but it's him. So it's his buddy, and
it's his buddy.
He's looking pretty good for mid-June. So again, I'm not getting too excited. It's one picture, It's not like it's every day, whatever.
Right.
But I mean, it's middle of June. Like I said, I try to have all my cameras out by 4th of July.
Right.
So it's still early, and I think I'm gonna start getting some more out maybe this weekend, and switch that mindset over to the whitetails. And I am fired up now.
Yeah, it happens. It definitely happens. But it's that time of year, man. I want to get some stands in and get things all strung along. I got high hopes for the season. I really do. I got some good high hopes. I didn't do any scouting winter-wise, so I'm going into it kind of blindfolded, but whatever. I don't care.
It's not a bad. Sometimes it's not a bad thing.
No, I think I'm going to go camera-less this year, bro. I honestly think I'm just going to hunt the sign like I would if I was travel hunting.
Yeah. Yeah, it works out for you travel hunting.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I got the spots. Just sit in stands and hunt, bro. I think that's what I'm going to do and just enjoy the woods this year. I think it's what's needed, and it's on the list of things to do.
Right. I like it.
Yeah. Well, dude, what do you think, bro? Let's get on over to Casey and hear about some falconry. This is a good podcast, guys. Get out the notepad. Start doing your research because it's this might stick the needle in some. I really do think it will.
Yeah, this was a cool one. Just so many questions. Like, if you know nothing about it, it's just like every single thing he says is just like, what? You can do that? Like,
yeah,
it's just very little knowledge on the topic. It was really cool to listen to explain it and the whole process and all that stuff.
I mean, there's nothing better than it. It's just something different, dude. I mean, you could do it just about anywhere and kind of enjoy it. It's just a different sport. And like he says, it's for filling the freezer and putting meat where it needs to be.
Right.
Next to the potatoes and gravy.
There's nothing better than that.
No, there's really not. Let's take it on over to Casey, guys.
All right, let's go.
All right, we're back on the phone with Casey the Birdman. What's up, Casey?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Thanks for joining us, man. This is going to be kind of fun. I'm actually kind of really looking forward to this podcast.
Good. I'm glad. Me too. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Let's turn the key, man. Let's put this thing in four-wheel drive. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do?
Okay. So, like you said, my name is Casey Everett. I'm a falconer from New Jersey. I hunt and catch game with a bird of prey, and it's pretty successful means of take the way I do it. So
That's
pretty much it.
That's super cool, man. What made you kind of get into the whole falconry thing? Because there's got to be some type of crazy story. Because not just everybody goes out and gets a falcon or a hawk or whatever the case may be and just says, okay, one day I'm going to do this.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great question. And a lot of people have many different avenues. They go to like a Renaissance fair, they see a movie, they read a book. Most of the people that read this book called My Side of the Mountain, they usually fall in love with the idea of being a falconer. It's a very romantic version of falconry in the book where the kid runs away from his family and lives in the wild and gets a young hawk and he trains it to catch his food and he lives, in the wild. And so it's I've always been in nature. I've always been an outdoors kid, catching stuff, running around, catching snakes, setting traps for birds, doing, just outdoor kid stuff. And I was homeschooled. My mom homeschooled me and my brother and my brothers and my sister. And we feel like to get us in nature and get us involved. And I think one time we were walking in a park and a red-tailed hawk flew over our head chasing a squirrel. And my mom said that's amazing. I actually read an article about this sport called falconry that you could actually hunt with one of those. And long story short, we went down the rabbit hole, called the state. This was like almost 18 years ago. So we it wasn't that much stuff online. There was no like Instagram where you could like look up like hashtag falconry or something. And so we went down the rabbit hole. We got in contact with the the DEC, Fish and Wildlife in New Jersey, and asked them what are the steps that you need to go through to do this. And I was just a kid. I was 12, 13 years old, and between me and my mom, we went through the steps. My mom helped me. Use it as a teaching moment for me, and I got a sponsor. I built my facility in my yard that was inspected by the state. Got a sponsor who was awesome. We went out, got my first red-tailed hawk, and trained it to hunt with me. And caught a bunch of game with it, and it's been basically that ever since. Just different birds, different levels of intensity, different quarries, and just it's just a passion that I really enjoy.
That's crazy, dude. So you literally started off with a red-tailed hawk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And is there like certain steps that certain states make you go through? Like New Jersey, you can start with a red-tailed hawk? Because I know like in my kind of research, you have to start with a certain bird. Like here in Connecticut, you have to start with a certain bird and then work your way up. You can't just go right to the top of the food chain.
Right, correct. Yeah, so you can't just become a falconer, and like in Europe, there's no barrier to entry. So you can literally be like, I want a golden eagle, and just literally save up like 10 grand and buy a golden eagle and like get your face ripped off by not knowing what you're doing. So yeah, in America, we have a very strict set of guidelines. So there's certain species that are very high populations of and are more suited, I would say, for falconry purposes, meaning their personalities are more mellow and they're more easygoing and they're more they could take a little bit more mistakes without anything bad happening. So between the state and the old school falconers back in the day coming up with these regulations decided that there was certain species that were good for a beginner to start with. And the red-tailed hawk is one of them. They're big, they're strong. If you skip a feeding by accident, it's not just going to die. If it gets away, it'll just go right back into the wild. I don't know the exact criteria that they use, but I just off of my knowledge of birds of prey, I would imagine that's some of the reasons why kestrel was one of the birds, an American kestrel. They're a very common bird. Nowadays, not so much because habitat loss. They live in kind of a specific, area. They live in open fields and they eat a lot of grasshoppers, small mice, stuff like that. And with urban sprawl and where you guys are from, where I'm from, how many times have you had a little plot of woods that you used to bow hunt in, and then now it's like a condo complex or something like that, and that goes on and that pushes the birds out. And I'm not a tree hugger by any means or anything like that, but the numbers of those birds have gone down. So I say all that to say that in some states you're allowed to have an American kestrel and a red tail, and in some states you're not. There are other states that I have heard of that allow you to purchase a captive bred bird of your choosing, but it cannot be an imprint, meaning you can't raise it from a chick, because that requires a little bit more skill. So each state is different, and each state has their own rules, but like usually uniformly, it's you start with a red tail, you build your facilities, you get a sponsor, you take the test, you trap your first red tail, you train it, and you go hunting with it, and then you're on a 2-year apprenticeship. So at the end of the 2 years, your sponsor can say, okay, they can tell the state, okay, this guy's good, or this girl is she can, we could pass her on to a general falconer, meaning you're on your own, you can do whatever you want. Or this person needs another year, they're not quite ready to have, the responsibility of their own falconry license with nobody overseeing them. So let's put them on for another year, or just deny them altogether based on, the situation. So it's nice that we have that, because you don't want people getting involved for the wrong reasons. You don't want animal abuse. You don't want, negligence, stupidity, all these reasons that, you probably wouldn't want to go hunting with somebody who doesn't have, good trigger discipline or muzzle control. So it's just the same kind of concept. You know what I mean? Just the animals, the best outcome for the animal is the most important.
So you were saying trapping the bird. So what goes into trapping the bird? So you're gonna go in. You have a mentor, and then now you have to trap the bird. How do you go about trapping the bird?
Yeah, that's a very. I get that question a lot, and it's a hard question for me to answer because originally, me growing up as a kid, these were all falconry techniques that you kind of didn't want everybody to know about because of the risk of random people that were unethical going out and using the techniques to trap birds of prey. But nowadays you can look up anything on Google, so it doesn't really matter anymore. So the main technique that I used to use as a kid is I used to drive around. Well, my brother would drive. He would drive around, and I had a wire cage with either gerbils, rats, mice. Usually, wild caught stuff works better because it's more active inside of the cage, and the cage is about a foot long and 8 inches wide, with weights on the bottom and a little trap door, and fishing line nooses all over the top of it. And I would tie each individual one of them, like hundreds of them. And basically you drive around till you see a big red tail hawk, a juvenile. You're only allowed to trap juvenile hawks with the proper permitting. And you would, locate it and then slowly drive by. I'd open the door and carefully drop it on the grass, and we keep driving. The hawk thinks it's just a mouse milling around in the grass, comes down, tries to nail the cage, starts footing the cage, and ends up getting tangled in the nooses. And then once the bird is tangled, it's pretty obvious because they just want to try to get out of there because they realize something's, they're like, something's wrong here. And then you run in and you carefully and gently, because this bird is going to be your hunting partner. So you run in, very carefully and gently, and you put what's called a hood over their head to calm them down. And then you carefully, untangle them from the nooses, and then take them home. And, first you fill out your paperwork and you submit it to the state and all that. And then you begin the training process. There's all different methods. There's methods that we use for banding purposes to band the raptor's ankles. We put a band, it's not a tracking device, but it's a with a number, kind of like a banded duck. Mm-hmm. Very similar thing. And so we use methods with big nets and then pigeons to lure the migrating birds down out of the migration to try to catch the pigeon as an easy meal. And instead of catching the pigeon, they go right into the net and you run out and catch them. And banders use that for research purposes. We use that for falconry purposes and research purposes. So that's another method. And there's whole different methods. There's, self closing traps, that where you keep pigeons in it, and if the bird lands on the stick closes and then they're trapped. There's many different methods, mm-hmm. all of which require a permit to have and to use. Obviously, they're part of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, so you can't just same way you can't go out and grab a mallard duck from the park and put it in a cage in your house. You can't go out and grab a hawk and put it in a cage in your house. It's the same laws protect both birds. So yeah, that's just a couple of the methods that we use.
That's so cool. So if all right, we're gonna take it right back. So if say for example, me or Steve wants to become a falconer, right? What is the beginning steps to what we would have to do? Like, who would we reach out to? Who would we talk to? Like, how do you go about this? Like, this is just absolutely like mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing that I tell most people when I get this question a lot, is I tell them to reach out to their local, DEC or wildlife agency and ask to speak to whoever's in charge of the falconry, department of the state. And each state has a falconry coordinator. And basically, you can have a conversation with them, or if you can't get them on the phone, which is common, you can email them with your interest in falconry, and then they usually just try, not necessarily try to discourage you, but just tell you the information that I just passed along, that you need to have a sponsor, you need to build this, 8x8 structure with a connected cage to it that costs, nowadays with lumber prices, that a few $1,000s to put up. Then you have to buy all the equipment. You have to have food so it's like a whole thing before you can even get the bird. And then that all has to get inspected. Then you have to find somebody who's willing to put their name on you to like teach you. And then obviously there's a written test, so you have to study for it. It's not rocket science, but there are some medical questions, husbandry questions, identification questions, just just to weed out anybody that's not necessarily like really interested in doing it. But if you're really interested in doing it, nothing's going to stop you. Like with me as a 13-year-old kid, I couldn't sleep at night. Nothing was going to stop me from becoming a falconer and hunting with birds of prey. Nothing was going to stop me from doing that. I couldn't even sleep at night. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to catch squirrels. I wanted to catch rabbits and ducks with my hawk and bring them home and cook them and try to, that's all I wanted to do. So if you're really into it and you have that desire to do it, you're going to make it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And all right, we'll get away from the business for a second. What was the first feeling that went in your mind when your red-tailed hawk for the first time comes down and catches something? What really happened?
I mean, it's like the most incredible feeling, because it's like, first of all, when you trap a hawk and it's a completely wild animal, and then the day that it jumps from a perch to your glove to eat from you, that moment is the first moment where you really are like, this is insane. I can't believe this is actually happening before my eyes. And then you just progress from there to the point where when you're hunting and the bird catches something, and this is the beauty of falconry, is that it doesn't take very long to get the bird to understand that you're not a threat and that you're an aid to the bird and you're there to help the bird catch its natural quarry. So when they catch something, they just do what they would normally do if you weren't even there. They just grab it. They start footing it and grabbing it in different ways, that they've learned in the past in the wild before you had the relationship with them, how to dispatch whatever they're trying to kill. And you just get that moment to just basically just be part of a wild encounter. It's like picture like you're watching, not, well, this is kind of graphic, but watching like wolves take down like an elk. Mm-hmm. And like you're running with the wolf, just jogging, watching, and they're just kind of like not paying attention to you. It's like kind of like the same thing. It's like you're there, you get to see something that most people will never see in their life, and you get to have like a front row seat of like watching it happen. Not in a graphic, violent way, because we dispatch all of our quarry. I don't stand there and drool and watch the bird like, tear something apart while it's alive. So, you want to respect the quarry and you dispatch it. But when the bird is eating and the way it's acting and the behaviors, it's all like for me at least, that's the thing that gets me really excited. Is it's like, this is something that like goes on every day in the wild, and like most people will never see it. And I just get to sit here with my dog and just watch it happen, watch the bird eat. And then I have all these techniques to trade the bird off of what it catches for a slightly smaller piece of food reward, and then put the game in my bag. And then depending on, her mood, we can keep going and catch more. And I can, catch a limit of rabbits or a limit of squirrels or whatever the case may be. And it's that, for me, that's the most exciting. So the first catch that we caught was a gray squirrel, and she actually footed me. She grabbed my hand. I ran in. And I didn't know what to do. So like the bird went down, disappeared. I couldn't find it for a little while. I'm looking all over. And then I finally hear a tinkle of bells, which is why we have the bells. And I ran in. I saw her. Oh my gosh, she's on the squirrel. And I go in to like help her or like grab the squirrel so it wouldn't bite her or whatever I was doing. And I reached it with my bare hand on like a 5-degree day, and she just didn't like how fast I was moving, and she just let go of the squirrel with one foot and just sunk her talons into my hand, my freezing cold bare hand, right there in the woods, and just held on. And she was kind of looking at me like, what did you just try to do? Like, what are you doing? And I'm literally like in agony. There's like blood coming on. And then she finally realized like I'm not trying to steal her food. And then she let go. And then my adrenaline was going so hard I didn't even care. It was just like the most exciting day of my life. And then I think the squirrel was already dead by then, and I ended up cutting it open so that she could easily eat from it, because the squirrel hide's pretty tough, as we know. And I just basically sat there and let her eat the entire thing as a positive reward for her, to understand that this is what we're going to do now, and there's no negative feelings. You get to eat all of your food whenever you want, and no one's going to harm you or anything like that. And then I picked her up and went back home, and that was the first experience hunting and catching quarry with a hawk, and it was amazing.
That's epic. That's absolutely epic. I couldn't even imagine, honestly, like walking up to it and it's sitting there and it's just kind of doing its thing, and you just sit back and watch it just go to town.
Yeah, it's amazing. And like watching the flight and the way they move through the trees, and it's just amazing. The whole thing, for me at least, it's really cool. Some people obviously, it's not just a bird catching a squirrel, but it is something very cool about it, and it's fun to be a part of. It's amazing.
Casey, can you take us a little bit through the training process? Like, you talked about how you get your bird and your first kill, but I'm sure there's a big process there between, like you said, just that first time that they jump off the perch onto your glove. But I'm sure there's a big process there to get to the point where you can just release them into the wild and go catch a squirrel.
Yeah, there are many steps that lead up to that, many rungs of a ladder that you got to climb with that bird to build the trust, to show the bird that it's not going to hurt you, that you're not going to hurt it, and anything like that. So basically, it all starts off of the trap. Like I said, it starts when you trap the bird. So you want everything to be calm, and everything to be calm, and no trauma to the bird. You want everything to be calm. So we take the bird off the trap. We very calmly put a hood over its head. We take it home. We put equipment on its legs, anklets and jesses. Anklets are like a little bracelet with a hole. And then we slide jesses through the hole, and then they attach to a swivel. And then the swivel attaches to a leash, and the leash gets tied off to your glove. And then you get the bird to stand on your glove with the hood on its head, so it can't see anything. It has nothing to be afraid of. And you go into a very darkened room, and you sit very quietly. And the way I do it is I keep a very bloody piece of rabbit or quail or something that's very enticing to a wild bird that they would love to take a bite of. And I keep that right in my glove. They're basically standing on it. And then I very carefully remove the hood in, like I said, a very dark room, and then just do not make eye contact with the bird, and then just sit quietly and wait. And then the bird will eventually realize like what the heck is going on here. And if each bird's different, so some freak out and try to fly away, and then you have to kind of coax them back onto the glove. And then after a while, they'll just stand on the glove, and they're obviously very nervous, and they have their wings out, and they're all puffed up and hissing at you. And then if you wiggle your fingers, eventually they'll look down like, what's that? And they'll see the meat, like the bloody carcass of something that they would love to eat down there. And then some of them, depending on how hungry they are when you trap them, they'll just bend right down and start eating. And that's like step number one. That's like rung number one. I mean, there's many rungs, but that's like the number one thing is you want them to eat. And now they're eating from you. Then you allow them to eat more, and you continue to add light to the room as the days progress. And then eventually, instead of them just eating, they have to hop off of a perch or step off of a perch to the glove for a reward. And then you increase the distance. So then you just keep increasing the distance, increasing the light, adding in more stimulus, like your wife or a dog or cars or traffic, and you just keep increasing the distance while they're on a long leash, a very long leash. And then you get to the point where the bird is coming a significant distance to you on the leash. During this period of time, you're weighing the bird daily, sometimes multiple times a day. You're feeling their muscles on their chest, their keel bone, like the breastbone. You're feeling the muscles, how fit they are, how much fat is there, because you can feel the difference. And you're weighing them at the same time. So you basically find where the fat is coming off to a degree where they're not, where they're more incentivized to hunt, but they're not, unhealthily low. And then you mark that weight down. And if the bird is coming when is called, like almost instantly, that's probably the weight that you're going to go hunting with. And then basically that's like the moment of truth. You do that a couple times and that's the moment of truth. And then the next day, if the bird's at the same weight, you say, okay, good. I'm going to take the leash off today. You take everything off. You can put a transmitter on the bird so you can find it if something happens. And then you release it. And then it will fly up into a tree completely free. And you'll put your fist out with a reward like it's been doing for a couple of weeks. And it comes right at, hopefully it comes right out of the tree and lands on your glove for its reward. And then after that, it's just a matter of transitioning the bird from, just coming to the glove to we're going to go find food for you to catch. And then you just go straight into that. And usually what I do is I go out into a spot that I know has a lot of rabbits or a lot of squirrels, put the bird up like as if we're training, and then walk around the bird wherever she's perched and try to, get a rabbit to flush or a squirrel to run. And then, once they see it, they know what it is and they want to catch it. They can't help themselves and they just immediately chase it. And, hopefully they catch it. And if they catch it, like I said, you let them eat a lot, you let them sit there calmly, no stress, no problem, and just let them eat. And then after that, it's basically just fine tuning the relationship between you and the bird. You might have to bring the weight after the bird understands what's going on. You might have to bring the weight back up because maybe it's a little too low. They don't need to be that low. Or maybe they're still kind of fat. So one day the wind blows them and they fly all the way away and they're like, all right, see you later. And you got to track them down and find them. So then maybe you have to bring the weight a little bit lower. But you never want the bird to be low or unhealthy because that's counterintuitive to the whole process. You want a fit, athletic bird to catch game. So if you're starving it, that's a common misconception. People think you're starving the bird to hunt for you. It's like it's like a slave. It's like, no, because you want the bird to be fit and strong and healthy, and you don't want them to be desperate like they're dying, because you're not going to catch anything like that. So once you find that weight, then you can, and then as they hunt more and you're flying them, you'll feel the chest muscles get stronger, and then you got to bring the weight up with, you bring the weight up. Obviously when you work out, you get, muscle weighs more than fat. So you got to bring the weight up. So there's all these little fine details that you can do. So it's not just like pulling a gun out and going to the field and flushing a couple rabbits and shooting them and then putting the gun away. It's a little bit more like involved. You have to like kind of be on top of your bird's health constantly, the weight of your bird, the food you're feeding it, the fuel that you're putting in the bird. So there's a lot of different aspects, and some of that stuff is fascinating to people, and some of that stuff is like kind of a turnoff to people because it's like a lot of work. So that's like basically the step-by-step way to train a hawk and get out hunting. Obviously there's little details in between there, but that's the general outline.
So one of the things that you do you hunt with your bird and a dog, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So what is the bonus to having a dog? Because normally you would go out in the field, the bird would be released from you, you would walk around trying to flush something, get something going, but now you've added the extra step of having a dog with you to do that process of walking around and flushing up stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's like just like any gun hunter or rabbit hunter that uses beagles versus just manually flushing game. It's like night and day. It's like, I could go out and beat brush with a stick and sweat and bleed and get destroyed with briars here in the north. In the Northeast, we have a lot of briars and it's thick where the rabbits are. So to have a dog that's suited for that, kind of game can get in there and just do the flushing for you. It makes your life so easy. And it's amazing to see that the bird will just naturally because during the training process, like I said, you're adding the dog into the training process. So the bird's always kind of used to you and the dog being around. Then it sees the dog flush the rabbit out of a bush, or in my case, a rabbit out of a hole or a brush pile or whatever. The bird quickly learns, okay, the dog is helping me probably more than the human's helping me. So I'm going to follow this dog around. And there's plenty of times where my dog is working a rabbit scent and she's getting excited and opening, and you see my hawk just key in right on that noise of my dog getting excited and fly right over and land over her and just stare at her and be like, where's my food? And then the minute the rabbit busts, the hawk comes down and just smokes it. And then the dog respects the bird and backs off and waits. And then we all get to sit there and let the bird eat and enjoy the whole experience, or trade her off, put her back up if she's game, and try to catch another one. And that's pretty much it. But it just makes your life so much easier. You know what I mean? It's like,
Was there ever a point
just a regular?
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say, just a regular beastmaster with all your animals.
Sometimes it feels like that because like when the dog and the bird, when the dog and the bird can be like, it's like you're literally just like, I've literally sat down on a park bench and just sat there and just heard my dog like opening and meaning she's getting excited and flushing rabbits and hearing the bells tingle behind me. And then when I hear the squeal of a rabbit, I'll just stand up and, all right, she got one. And I'll go walk through the woods and try to find him. And I'll find the bird on the rabbit and the dog sitting next to her,
Right.
like all excited. And it's just like, this is just like a self-perpetuating system. So it can be like, just like wild animals doing, their thing, and you just get to observe it. It is a lot of fun. It's amazing.
Now, with having the dog and the bird, like at first, was there like trials and tribulations to get the two of them to work together? Like was there ever a point where the bird was trying to attack the dog, or because I mean, your dog, dachshunds, I think, right?
Yeah, it's a dachshund. Yeah, it's a long-haired miniature dachshund. Yeah,
and like they're smaller, smaller breed of dog.
Yeah,
and
it's a little dog, it's a tiny dog.
The hawk is taking down, mallards and this, that, and the other thing. Is there ever like a point where you're like, oh crap, like that the bird could attack the dog?
Yeah, so that does happen. Usually, when I'm raising a new hawk, like I'm raising a young bird, and it's always around the dog. So it's just like the dog is like me. It's just there. It's our buddy. She helps with this. She helps with that. So there's never any like aggression. But for example, this past year, I got a bird that was a secondhand bird from somebody else, and he had big dogs. And he gave her to me. He's like, yeah, she's good with dogs. She should be fine with your dog. And we went out on a hunt after training, and getting a feel for the bird, at the house for a week or so. We went out on a hunt, and she just didn't like the way Ginger looked at her. So she just grabbed her, but not really grabbed her like to kill her. She just grabbed her like, F you, go get me something. Why are you looking at me for? And it was kind of like, so it's kind of like very rarely does the bird, maybe a wild bird in a different scenario would try to grab a small dog, like if, and try to kill it. Mm-hmm. But with, a bird that's captive bred and raised around people and other dogs, it's more of like, I hate to say it's more comical. It's like more comical. Like, the dog will get too close while the bird's eating, and the bird will like jump off and like not grab them with the talons, but like smack them and then jump back on the, like kind of like get away from me. And it's like the dog freaks out and runs away with its tail between its legs. But like, it's like funny because nothing bad's happening. So it's usually like any type of like situation like that. That's how it usually goes. Very rarely does the hawk clamp down on the small dog and like try to kill it. I mean, it's happened in the field where somebody takes out their bird and they hunt with a bigger dog. And then somebody's like, oh, I'll run my dog too. And they're like, yeah, it should be fine. And then the red-tailed hawk that's wild just comes down and just nails it. You know what I mean? Like that has happened before, but it's very uncommon. And then usually you just pull the bird off of the dog, and then the bird realizes, okay, I didn't like that. That was kind of weird. Usually you help me when I catch something. Usually it was a positive thing. That was kind of negative. And then they realize, all right, I'm just going to stop trying to do that because nothing good happens when I do that. And they just stop.
Right. And then
they're very smart.
Not huntable.
Yeah. Like, I used to catch, when I would hunt with red-tailed hawk, I'd always try to catch geese with them because I'm like, the red-tailed hawk is big, it's a strong, and I used to try to like sneak up on, geese and stuff at like golf courses and try to catch them, but the red-tails will just never go after them. And I'm like, why won't they go after them? And it's probably because when they were a young hawk, they went after it and they got their ass beat. And then now they go, okay, those things are no good. I'm not going to try to waste my time with those anymore. So they learn like pretty quick. Like if something's not working, they're just going to abandon it and try something else. You know what I mean? This isn't. So they're smart enough in that way. So yeah, if any situation like that happens, you basically just work them through it, and then usually they just kind of stop. And if it progresses, then you just stop running with small dogs, or you let the bird go and catch another one and try from scratch.
And that's okay to do,
if possible.
Is let them go and then try again.
It depends on the state you're in, depends on the permits you're allotted and that you're allowed. Most states, you're only allowed 2 birds. So if you get a red tail and it dies, it gets sick, it runs into a window, it gets attacked by a coyote in the field or something like that. Some states will allow you to trap another one during the trapping season to use for falconry. In other states, you're only allowed 1. So if something happens, you're done. But yeah, sometimes some birds, they just don't calm down. They're very stressed out. They don't want to, like the whole process that I discussed earlier. Some birds just don't want, they're just too wild. They just don't get it. They don't want to be part of the whole situation. And that's fine. We don't want to stress them out. So we leave them, in a chamber uninterrupted, and we just throw food to them and get them real nice and fat and strong and healthy and beefed up. And then we'll cut all the equipment off and release them back where we got them. And they just go right back into the wild. But 9 times out of 10, I mean, most red-tailed hawks, they're like very intelligent and they're just very game to be part of that environment. Like they take to it almost as if it was like programmed in them to do that. They just learn very quickly that this is something that's like cool. Like I get to go out. It's like basically like the way I equate it to like if you had like an uncle that like was like, oh yeah, you know, instead of going out and you know being a plumber like me and sweating and crawling around under people's houses and running drain lines, like you can just come and like just hang out at my pool in my yard and I'll give you money. And it's like, dude, I'm just gonna hang out by the pool and just get money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like kind of like that. And the same thing. It's like you don't like in their life they have to work for every little thing they get. They have to be out in the freezing night and freezing their ass. My wife, she's like, you know, she wasn't brought up in the outdoors, and it's like freezing cold blizzard, and she's like, oh, there's hawks out there right now, just like sitting in trees. I'm like, they're literally just tucked next to, you know, in a pine tree or something, just trying to survive. I'm like, this is what they do. Like it's brutal. So like my bird's in this, you know, this room that's like nice and there's no wind hitting them, and I can bring them inside if it's too cold, or if they get sick, I give them medicine. And it's like they learn pretty quick that this is like I get like to hunt and have fun and catch stuff, but like there's no consequences. Like if anything bad happens, if I fly bad and I don't catch something, normally I would sit in a tree and freeze and possibly starve to death. But when I go home, this guy's going to feed me anyway. So it's like this is like the best life ever, you know.
Right.
And they take to it immediately, you know, and for the most part, depending on the bird, obviously.
And
yeah,
so some of them are wild stallions and some of them aren't, and they just kind of do their thing, and some of them kind of want to be in captivity and just kind of hunt and live their life.
It seems that way sometimes. Some of them you're like, this bird just wants to be like. I caught a bird with my bare hand one time. I threw out a quail on a string, and the bird came down and grabbed it. I literally just pulled the string towards me and just basically just reached out and grabbed the bird and picked it up, put a hood on it, brought it home and trained it, and it was like an awesome bird. I'm like, this bird like wanted to be a falconry bird, and it was a great bird. And I caught a whole bunch of stuff with it, and it was fun. And then at the end of the season in the springtime, I just took, you know, got it real healthy and fat, and just let it go right where I caught it. And I've, you know.
So are you allowed? Before you had said that some states only allow you to have one bird and then you're done
for the season.
Oh, for the season. Okay.
Yeah,
so every
season,
you get a different bird.
You could. I know people that have flown the same red-tailed hawk for 27 years.
Okay.
You know, so you can do that. Our license, it's the state. Okay, so the way it works is that it's the state's property, right? But we have a permit that entrusts us with the responsibility of the bird and its safety and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what it is. Like I don't own my bird, even though I paid for my hawk. This hawk is on the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So my goshawk, even though it's white and it's a subspecies, it's still technically it's still technically the genus, you know, Accipiter gentilis. So that's the scientific, and that's what we have. So it's the state's bird. So like if you break the law or you do something, or like you're unfit to take care of that bird anymore or something like that, like they'll just come in and confiscate it. It's their bird. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll give it to another falconer or a rehabilitation center or something like that. And they'll release it. I mean, that very rarely happens. The only time that stuff happens is if like falconers, like, to be honest with you, like they don't fill out the correct paperwork or they lie in their paperwork. But it's usually not a lie. It's usually like, you know, it's usually like a misunderstanding most of the time. The amount of stuff that we have to go through to get a bird of prey, like you don't really want to like jeopardize that. So like we usually follow everything that we do to the letter of the law just to be safe. You know what I mean?
So you have quite a special bird, not a regular hawk. Tell us a little bit about it, how you got it, and kind of what makes it so special.
So I have a goshawk, like I said, you know, it's part of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, but it's a circumpolar species, meaning there's a latitude band around the whole Earth that polar bears live in, that, you know, grizzly bears and brown bears live in. There's grizzly bears and there's brown bears in Russia, there's brown bears in Alaska. It's the same animal but in different countries. And I have a goshawk that's from Russia, Siberia, and it's basically the same goshawk that we have in America, only it's white. And it's a little bit different in its behavior and the way it acts and its hunting style. But yeah, in America, we're lucky enough that we have people that breed them. So you're actually able to, with your license, when you know you get to a certain level and you have the proper paperwork, you can purchase a young hawk from one of these breeders and raise it. And and hunt it. And it's like I said earlier, it's like like I can imagine that I'm in like Siberia watching a wild white hawk eating a rabbit, like as if it would be in the wild, but it's totally like, it's just amazing. It's an amazing experience. So nowadays with captive breeding and with a lot of the advancements that we've made, that falconers have made in getting different genetic lines into the country for breeding purposes, not only does it serve the opportunity for people in America to fly them and people in Europe and other countries to fly the birds that you could never have opportunities to fly. If there were ever an instance where birds of prey numbers in a certain region are declining, there is an opportunity that we could theoretically breed our birds and release them back into the wild. And we did do that with the peregrine falcon here in America. And a lot of people don't really know that, which is a pretty interesting subject. We could run down the rabbit hole if you wanted to. We
Yeah,
don't
no,
have to.
absolutely. I think that's kind of cool. So they were like extinct at one time or on the verge?
Yeah, they were right on the verge of being extinct. It was the DDT and other pesticides that were what was happening was it was getting into the water. The ducks were eating the fish, eating in the water, feeding, and then it was getting into the ducks and other animals. And peregrine falcons eat a lot of waterfowl and birds, and the birds were transmitting the toxicity in their system to the birds, and the birds weren't really dying from it. So that wasn't really the issue. The birds weren't dying from it. What it was doing is it was making the eggshell wall thinner. So when they would lay their eggs, they would sit on them to incubate them, and they would just crush. I'm not a scientist. I don't know every little detail of it, but that was a huge problem, and it was a lot of birds were affected. The peregrine falcon and the bald eagle, they use them as like spokespeople, but it was affecting a whole bunch of other birds. And what happened is we had falconers that were breeding the birds, hunting with their birds, just going about our daily business. And when this issue was becoming a huge problem, we teamed up with the government and we actually donated, falconers, not myself obviously, but falconers donated their birds to what we call the Peregrine Fund, which is a nonprofit organization that then put the birds into breeding programs, and using our falconry techniques, they were able to breed, captive bred peregrine falcons and then release them back into the landscape using falconry techniques of what's called hacking, where the bird can stay around and it's fed in a certain way that stimulates it to hunt and go out, but then it still can come back and feed like as if it was in the wild. And pretty much it's not a disputed fact that a lot of the peregrine falcons that we have today, in the United States are a direct descendant or in some way a descendant of the birds that were bred back in that time period. Obviously, there's subspecies in different parts of the country that maybe weren't affected so much, but as a general rule, that is an accurate statement.
So the peregrine falcons, is that one of the falcons that you can still use today as a falconry bird?
Yeah, so since they were on the endangered species list, they were not eligible to be falconry birds. So we weren't allowed to touch them. We weren't allowed to do anything. We didn't want to touch, people, we want to fly them. They're beautiful birds. They're amazing for falconry. They're actually very suited for falconry. But the numbers were so low that the biologists didn't think it was a good idea to remove any from the population for falconry purposes, even though it was perfectly healthy and we could release them back in the wild, whatever the case may be. It was a bad look for the public for us to take them, even though they're still, not healthy numbers. And nowadays their numbers are like through the roof. They're all over the place. We see them all the time. The migration counts coming down are great. So a lot of states in the last 10 years or so have opened up each individual state to allow you to take like just a small number. You could take 2 in one state or 5 in another state and use them for falconry and then release them back into the wild when you're done. So
and with that, like with going along with some of the falconry birds, is there certain birds for different animals that you're going to take? Like yourself, like a hawk, you're not going to go, like you said, geese or something like that. Like if you wanted to target bigger game, would you go to a bigger bird or how would that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically, like the area that you live in and the amount and the kind of quarry that you have around your home or your hunting fields, that's going to kind of depict the bird that you should fly. So if you live somewhere where there's no rabbits or squirrels and there's only ducks and it's open and flat, you might want to fly a falcon because they're more suited for an open, flat terrain where there's ducks and partridge and pheasant or whatever the case may be. Like for my case, I live in a place where there's rabbits, there's squirrels, and there's ducks, and there's geese. So a large goshawk can take all of those species. So that's why I fly a goshawk, because a goshawk can pretty much catch basically anything that any of the other birds can catch. You know what I mean? So yeah, it would depend on that. So if you have a lot of small birds and you live in an urban area with not so many open fields, you could fly a smaller hawk that just specializes in catching birds, and you could just catch little birds all day. You know, so that's the beauty of it. You can kind of pick what bird you want that's going to be best suited for your area and your hunting style, and then implement that bird into that environment. The problem is when you try to fly a bird because you really want to fly it, but there's nowhere to fly it or there's no game for it to catch, and then it's just kind of like, what are you doing, you know?
Right.
So
Now, is there like laws or regulations, like say that your goshawk went out and it caught a robin, for example, like a songbird, like what is
Yep.
the stipulations on that? Like,
yeah, that's an excellent question, and that's not a very common question, but that was written into the laws because obviously it is something that can happen and then sometimes does happen. And we have what's called the let it lie law. Let it lay, I think, is the correct term. I can't remember. So basically, for example, when I was a kid, my red-tailed hawk caught a great blue heron. And I was like, I thought I was going to go to prison. You know what I mean? I was like a little kid. So I was like, oh no. And I like ran down to like get the bird off of it. But this was a big red tail, and she grabbed the heron right by its head and like mangled it all up. So she just, it was basically dead by the time I got down to her. And I actually called a friend of mine who was a falconer and a lawyer. And he said,
that's the guy to
like,
call.
What do I do? Yeah, it's the guy to call. Like a perfect guy. And I called him. And I was a kid. I knew that there was a law about this, but I didn't know for sure. And he said, okay, he's like, you're fine. Calm down. Your bird can eat it because she caught it, and it's a wild interaction. So like nothing's stopping a hawk from catching a heron in the wild. You know what I mean? Like it's going to happen. So the law is that your bird can sit on it and eat it, but you cannot possess it. So if you pick it up and put it in your bag, you're done. You're going to be in trouble. If your bird eats it, you pick the bird up on your glove and you leave, it's legal. But obviously, if there was an instance where you were like purposely targeting things, then there is a case that they will like come after you, because there is instances where people have done that and not necessarily done it, but they live in an area where there's a lot of seagulls, and like you can't catch seagulls, and like the government will come in and be like, listen, and they'll write you a ticket, like you can't keep catching these seagulls, and obviously it's a mistake, but if it keeps happening, like as a falconer morally and as an ethical hunter, you got to kind of switch up what you're doing and not do those things. You know what I mean? So I don't really run into that often. You know what I mean? Like, small game season is pretty lenient. It's not, not lenient, but it goes for a longer period of time. And you know what I mean? It's not that hard. If I'm in the squirrel woods trying to catch squirrels, like there's not much else that's there. Maybe a turkey, accidental. And I mean, that has happened. But they're so strong that I was able to get the bird away from it without anything bad happening. This way I didn't, there was no instance. But that's a great question, man. That's a great question, and that is something that happens, and it is it's a wild hawk. It's afforded. So here's the thing: it's afforded the same rights as a wild hawk. So if somebody has chickens in their yard and a hawk comes down and grabs them, like you can't just run out there with a shotgun and blow its head off. Like you can't do that. Like it's illegal, and that is a very common thing that happens, and that's part of the reason why I post on social media and why I do podcasts like this. Because people sometimes they don't necessarily have a lot of respect for birds of prey. And there's this stigma that like the birds of prey are like taking our game from us. And they're eating our ducks, and they're eating our rabbits and our squirrels. And it's like, I get the argument because I'm a deer hunter. I'm a bow hunter. I kill a lot of deer. And if any coyote walks within 40 yards of me, like it's done. I'm smoking it. Because they eat the fawns, right? That's what we talk about. Mm-hmm. This is what we talk about. So it's the same concept that these guys use. The only problem is that their argument is ass backwards, because as a falconer, if my hawk catches and eats an entire duck, my bird, like first of all, my bird is not going to be able to eat the whole thing in one sitting, number one. Number two, that meat is so rich, that bird is not going to be hungry enough to hunt for multiple days. Like it's not going to have to eat again for like a week. Like that meat is so rich. So a lot of times what they do is they'll feed on it till they're gorged, then fly up in a tree and just sit there with their foot up and just relax. And then if they get hungry again, they'll try to go back down and keep eating it. So in a perfect scenario, one hawk could literally only eat one duck like per week, like literally. So it's like they're really not making that much of an impact, and it's extremely difficult for a bird of prey to catch a duck. First of all, I know this from experience. I have a human, a dog, and the element of surprise, and I still sometimes can't catch them. So it's not as easy as people think. You just go out and catch ducks. Like they're super slick, they're super clever. They put back in. They know when the bird is out of position. Like this is what they do all day long for a living. When the hawk tries to catch them, they outmaneuver it and get away. They're very clever. So I just tell people, and especially duck hunters and upland bird hunters, the birds are not really the problem. The problem is the mesopredators, the skunks, the raccoons, the possums. These are the things that are raiding the nest. The foxes, they're raiding the nest. They're killing all the eggs and eating them before they even get a chance to hatch. It's not the red-tailed hawk that's sitting on the telephone pole on the highway. Like that's not the problem. You know what I mean? So that's what I tell people. I'm not like then this is what I tell people. I'm not like a crazed like bird of prey hippie like crazy person. Like I'm a normal guy. Like I go out and I hunt with my bow. I'm a plumber. I fly my birds. I'm not into like Dungeons and Dragons. Like I'm just a hunter that wants to catch game, and I happen to do it with a hawk. And I fill my freezer to the point of my limit, and sometimes I got to eat off what I have before I can catch more because I'm going to get in trouble. That's how much game I catch, and you can be very, successful as a falconer, and you can, it's very hard to kill as many as somebody can kill with a gun. It takes a lot more work to catch a duck or a rabbit with a hawk. It's a lot more elements involved, but it's definitely not just like a LARPing kind of like pretend thing that we do. Like we catch game, you know what I mean? Like we're out in the field just like everybody else, and we just love birds of prey, and we don't want to see them get shot. And I just try to educate people with every chance I get to like tell them like the hawks are not the problem. Shoot the coyotes, shoot the coons. I don't even want to admit anything on air, but no coons come around my house, bro.
Yeah.
Coon comes around my house. No raccoon. If a raccoon comes around my house, the possums I feel bad for because they're so useless and slow. It's like they're just like I don't even know how they survive in the wild. To be honest, they're like so slow and like clumsy. It's like ridiculous.
I hate possums. They're just a giant rat, if you ask me.
Yeah, exactly. But they'll raid a duck nest with no problem. They'll eat all the eggs in that nest. And now that hen either has to double clutch again and lay more, or that's 10 ducklings that are not going to be hatching. You know what I mean? So that's the issue. That's the big issue to me. And I think more if you're a duck hunter and you're passionate about duck hunting, and I love my duck hunting, and this is all, then you should be a trapper. If you're not trapping or at least shooting, raccoons and possums, then don't complain to me about the hawks, because the hawks are not the problem at all. Scientifically, they're not either.
Well, that's the same with turkeys. I mean, our real problem with turkeys is all those same things that you just named off. The raccoons, the foxes, the coyotes, the bobcats. I mean, in all reality, they say it's the hunter, but it's not. It's all of our egg eating
nest
predators. I mean, that's really the problem. Yeah. We were in deer camp the other day, turkey camp during turkey season, and I hear a mallard across the creek from us, and it's like squawking real loud, and I see this thing swimming through the river, and I'm like, what in the world is that? It looked like an otter, but it's a raccoon. He swam across this little channel, went over, stole the eggs, and the mother duck, the hen, was coming after him, pecking at him, like, get the hell out of here, So, that's our problem, because how many...
That's the problem.
It could have ate 6 eggs while it was over there, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not...
Yeah, and then go right back there the next night and eat another 6 eggs,
Right. It's ridiculous.
It's terrible. And the issue is PETA.
Yeah.
No, it is.
It is.
If you go all the way back to PETA, they're the ones that came down and they put shame on wearing fur. So therefore, the fur prices, nobody's buying fur, nobody's wearing fur because it's a social stigma to wear fur. Ethically harvest fur or not, people make you feel weird about it. I bought my wife this beautiful fur, this fox coat. It was beautiful. She doesn't wear it unless we're somewhere with, because she's like, I don't want people to like look at me or be or say something to me. I don't want to get in an argument. And I'm like, PETA causing that crash the fur prices, which then stop there's no incentive for trappers to go out all night long and be away from their family to trap all these furs in the winter in the freezing cold. People still do it, thank God, but they're nowhere near taking the numbers that need to be taken out. And that's why PETA kills more animals per year than any hunters could possibly do. And I'll stand by that.
I agree, because I'm a hardcore trapper, and like people
Nice, man. That's
don't
awesome.
realize how important it is, like for your turkey populations and this, that, and the other thing. Honestly, and I know this is kind of a crazy rabbit hole, but like the best thing that ever happened to the trapping industry was Yellowstone, because Yellowstone,
right.
all of those beaver skin hats. So now everybody, like this year, finally the price of beavers has gone skyrocketed. We're getting $25, $35, $45 a beaver. Those are the old school prices. And so now that's getting more people to even, just beaver trapping. But then you're out there and you're putting a couple of coon traps. You're putting a couple of fox traps. You're adding to it, and it's bringing back the life to the trapping world. It really is.
Yeah, man. That's what we need more of. We need more guys like you with podcasts about this stuff to push for people to get out there and get their trapping. I don't even have a trapper's license, but I'm trying to get it. I'm gonna try to get it over the summer. And I mean, I've trapped, at my house, and stuff like that. Like I get it, and I can understand the way that animals move and stuff to probably be good at it. But I just want to do it because I'm just sick of all the raccoons and possums and skunks just destroying. I want game for us, for all hunters, and for the other animals that eat them. But there's too many of something. Like I live in Jersey, man, and you're from Connecticut, and you probably hear the crap that goes on with Jersey about the bear hunt.
Yeah,
there's only so many acres in New Jersey for bears to feed on. So if there's an excess of bears, you think you're loving bears by not taking any out, but you're really just making it harder for them because there's not enough food to go around for everybody.
Yep.
And then they're trashing people's garbage cans, getting into human conflict. It's just like, take a few, like, it's science. It's literally just science. It's math. It's physics. It's just something that's concrete. Like, take these out and other things do well. Don't take too much because then there's a lopsided, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just, that's why we pay biologists with our tag money. And that's why we pay them. So let them do their job, and let's get out there and do what we can do.
See, we're running through that same thing here in Connecticut, and one of the things that I totally advocate for all the time is even if we had a bear season like New Jersey or Connecticut, they're very similar in the bear realm. At least you were able to get a bear season. But like if they were to give us a bear season, then what ends up happening is those dumb bears, the ones that we have the problems with that are close to populations and stuff, those are the ones that we take care of and we get rid of.
Exactly.
We get rid of the problem bears, and then we keep strumming on, and it'll be less and less bears killed a year, and they're the good bears that stay away from human and problems. It's just it's common sense. You know what we need? We need you to fly a golden eagle, and you can start taking down bears and all this crazy stuff, and then we can fix all of these problems all together right from the get-go. So
they can golden eagles can kill some stuff. I don't think they can take a bear. And on that same subject, falconry related, this year my dog was underneath a log, not in it, but just a log laying on the ground with some brush around it. And there's good rabbits are everywhere. And she starts barking and barking. And I'm like, okay, because sometimes you'll find a raccoon or something like that tucked in there. It was literally a sow laying on the ground with a little indentation, like a, less than a foot. And she's laying on her stomach underneath the log with a baby in the dirt underneath her feeding. And I didn't know this at the time. I just walked over to see what it was. And I saw the bear looking at me through the brush. And I'm like, oh shit. And I have my GoPro on. I'm like, oh, bear. I'm like, Ginger. And I'm calling my dog. And then the bear luckily just turned around and ran away. And then I kept hearing this weird wailing noise. And I walked all the way around through the brush to see what was she doing under there. And sure enough, dude, I have a video. There's a little baby bear just sitting on the ground. And this is literally 50 yards. This is 50 yards from the side of somebody's house.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, and my wife was like, oh, that's so amazing. They just do that. I'm like, yeah, they will den and they will hibernate kind of anywhere. But I bet you there's no more good denning locations because the whole area is saturated with bears where I live. And there's no good dens for the young sows to get into because there's too many freaking bears. So that's just another reason. You know what I mean? There's not enough denning locations. How many denning locations are there? So and then my former sponsor was in another town, And his dog kicked up a bear that was same thing. He's like, it was just kind of underneath the brush, like just sitting there. I'm like, and it's the middle of February, it was hibernating. That's what it was doing there.
Right.
And he's like, why are they just sitting? I'm like, because there's nowhere for them to really go.
Well, there's
all taken.
There's a big live stream of this one bear that dens underneath this lady's porch. I don't know if you've ever seen this or not, but
I've seen something like that.
Yeah, it's dens right underneath their porch every single year, and they put a live stream on it. Like, dude, that's not good. That is not.
That's not
good.
a good thing. It's not good.
That's horrible. Really going back on falconry, can you tell us like the craziest experience you've ever had while out flying a bird?
There's been a couple. I have to think about it, but one that was pretty bad was I was hunting in an area that was like, it wasn't really close to the houses, but it was close enough. Obviously, a hawk can see for a very long distance, and we were hunting squirrels and rabbits. And I didn't have my dog with me at this time at this hunt, and my bird went on a long flight through the trees. And a lot of times they'll see a squirrel like all the way off, like scurrying around or just foraging or whatever, and they'll see it way before you could even possibly dream of seeing it. And they'll go on a long, shallow flight through the woods and just try to sneak attack it. So I see her doing that. And I go, okay, cool, squirrel. So I start like kind of jogging through the woods after her. And then all of a sudden I start hearing like ducks, quacking and like somebody yelling. And I was like, oh no, what the heck? Dude, so I come running out of the woods, jump across this river. There's a dude, like an old man in overalls with like a whole like flock of like domesticated ducks. And she's got one by the head and she's like, the thing's flapping around. He's literally like trying to hit my bird with a stick. And I ran and like dove in between him and the bird. And I was covering, the bird. And I'm like, stop, it's my bird. Stop. And he's like freaking out. He like started smashing his knees like into my back and like pushing on me. He's like, duck, duck, he's like going nuts. And I ended up getting the bird off of the duck, and the duck was fine. I mean, ducks are super tough. And he's like threatening to like kill. He keeps like, move out of the way. Like he's like trying to kill my hawk. And then I was like, all right, listen, I'm just going to leave. And then like his wife comes out, like his like hillbilly son like comes out with like a dog. Like he's like, I'm going to release the dog if you try to get. I'm like, holy crap. So they call the cops, and then the cops come, and the cops are like trying to like, they're like asking me questions because I'm like, the bad guy. And then the guy's like, I don't want him arrested, this and that. Anyway, long story short, I just gave the cops I just said, listen, man, it was an accident. My bird, it's afforded the same rights as a wild bird. You can't have poultry out into the open and expect nothing to try to kill them. I mean, I have chickens right now, and if I leave them out in the yard, I know that something can kill them. It's my own risk. So like, I'm not just going to shoot every bird of prey that comes through or beat it with a stick. So I'm like, if you're really that serious about protecting your ducks, keep them in something. And I told the guy, and I said, listen, you can give me a ticket, you can arrest me, you can do whatever you want. I said, but if you do that, then I'm gonna retaliate, because you can't just he tried to kill my bird. He was gonna kill it, and you can't do that. So that was a crazy thing. I had a guy, I was flying in like an urban area. This is funny. And and I'm flying a bird, and he tried to say that I was using my hawk. He was obviously a poacher, because you're not allowed to bow hunt. You can't discharge a firearm at this spot. And he's like, what are you doing in there, trying to look for big bucks? And I'm like, no, man, I'm just flying my bird, And he's like, you're using the bird to spot big bucks for you or something. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? And we went back and forth, and I had a GoPro video of the conversation. It was so bizarre. The guy was like demon possessed or something. He swore that I was trying to kill big bucks. I'm like, dude, I'm literally flying my bird around. Like, leave me alone, And he like would not leave it alone. He started like walking in the woods, like finally I had to tell him, I'm like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, do you want to fight or something? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, you have to call the police? Like, leave me alone. He's like, those big bucks are mine. I'm like, what? You can't even hunt here with a gun. You're too close to the houses. Like, what are you talking? Anyway, so that was a crazy one. Other stuff that's like not too like super crazy. I caught a duck on the salt marshes in New Jersey, right across from Atlantic City, and that was pretty cool because it's an amazing a lot of migratory birds down there, and it's like a different atmosphere for me. Like, I'm not used to that. And it was a long, beautiful flight up into the sky, and she caught them, and I had to jump into the marsh to get her, and like wade back to shore with my waders, and that was a fun experience. And I mean, there's always
do you get like antis that freak out about you killing stuff in certain areas? I know New Jersey's kind of blue like it is here, so
yeah, people get I haven't really had anybody that like, like I've had people be like with the bird on my fist, they're like, "What are you doing with that bird? Let it go." And I just go, "Okay," and I just like let the bird go, and they're like, what the hell?" And then I just whistle and it comes right back, and they're like, "Yeah," I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not abusing the bird. Bird's perfectly fine. Everything's gonna be okay. I'm legal." And then I usually take the time. My problem is I'll take the time to explain to people, and then they still call the cops anyway. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then the cops meet me at the parking lot, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm flying my bird." I tried to explain to her that I'm legal, and then they're like, "Yeah, man, whatever." And they're like, "Can we take a selfie?" And like, so it's like that happens where I hunt my birds and fly them. You're allowed to be there, but you're not. It's sometimes it's a little close to the houses, and it's a gray area in the law because it's I'm not discharging a firearm, so I'm not putting anyone in danger. I'm not trespassing on private property. So it's kind of like a gray area. But unless the landowner or the town has a specific ordinance, like there's one area that I flew that there is actually an ordinance that says no flying of raptors in the park. So I was like, "Oh, okay, no problem. I'll leave." I just left. I didn't know. But 9 times out of 10, the cops show up and they go, "This is so cool, man. Just don't."
They're into it.
Don't like piss anybody off. Like, "You're cool, man. This is good. Your paperwork's in order. You're legal. We're out of here." You know what I mean? So that's like the majority of it. I'm sure when we end the podcast, I'll remember like some funny story that happened.
Of course.
But for the most part, it's pretty much just going out and catching stuff. And you'll have some crazy flights, where the bird will hit the water and the duck, the bird will come down in the water and like be in the water with the duck fight, and they're like flopping around in there, and you're like, and I had to jump in and swim a couple times to get to them. But it's like fun stuff like that happens. It's definitely not like, it's definitely not like a boring. I see a lot of falconry content is like kind of like not boring, but it's just kind of like I could see why people like think it's lame because it's like it's some stuck up person like, "This was my bird," and it's like I'm just out there having fun, catching game, same way you guys are. You're out there with a 22 shooting squirrels or turkey hunting with your buddies. Like it's the same thing for us, for every people that I associate with. We're just hunters like everybody else. We're just doing it a little differently.
You're gonna have to get in on our squirrel competition. We have a squirrel competition at the end of every deer season, right around January, February, and we do like the longest squirrel, prettiest squirrel. We do all kinds of things. We give away all kinds of stuff, and it's just super cool. Dude. So it'll be kind of cool to kind of have you be part of it.
Be able to give Willow a little run for her money.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do it, man. I got a couple buddies that would love to take you up on that, and if you want, we could try to make it like a thing, and we'll come out and we'll see if we can catch as many squirrels as the gun guys.
Yeah.
And, it'd be fun. I think
so we do it. We do it a month long, and it's countrywide. So we have people from all over that we post.
It's not like one event.
No, so we have our family group called the Outdoor Drive on Facebook, and everybody enters in, and you just put it next to a tape measure, like the longest squirrel from tip to tip, and it's nice. Cool, dude. We have like it. So when it had all originated, man, it was kind of like a joke, right? Like who had the biggest balls on a squirrel, right? Like it was something stupid,
funny,
right?
Yeah, that's funny, yeah.
And then it turned into this big thing. Like now we have competition dogs that guys get in on it. We do most squirrels and biggest squirrel. It's insane. Yeah. It is so cool.
That's fun.
Yeah. So
it's not it's not like a physical event.
No.
It's more of like an online chat room, like it's fun for everybody getting involved.
Just a cool thing. Everybody shares their pictures and videos, man, and we just have a good time. Something after the deer season to kind of bring back the camaraderie of everybody, like because everybody gets all jacked up about their big deer, like that guy, and it's the same thing. So we just bring it all back together. So it'll be cool to kind of have you post a picture with your bird and a squirrel. Everyone kind of think it's kind of cool,
Yeah, man. We catch a bunch, man. We'll catch a lot of squirrels. Yeah, that'd be fun. I'll get in on that competition.
Yeah. It'll be kind of fun, dude. Well, is there anything that we kind of missed out on that you kind of want to touch on before we close this thing out, or kind of want the people to know?
Not really. I pretty much covered it. Like my whole mission. Like when I listen to the Hunt Quietly podcast every now and then, and some of it's a little over the top, but like listening to that, I sometimes try to like, it's basically a podcast that's like anti-social media hunting, if you're not familiar. And it's it's a guy seems to have a little bit of an issue with posting pictures of hunting or any kind of social media hunting. And so I've been trying to internalize, like, why do I post? And there's many reasons, and I pretty much cover them. The main reason is I just want people to see birds of prey as what they are, which is cool. They're exciting. They're part of the ecosystem. They're not a threat to anybody. And that's pretty much my mission. And so I've been a little introspective about that lately, and that's kind of like, so we covered that. So yeah, I can't really think of anything unless you have any other questions.
My last question, man, we ask everybody is, what drives you outdoors?
Catching game, filling my freezer, putting meat on the table for my family, and being self-reliant and not relying on the government for anything. That's what gets me outdoors, bro. That's what gets me outdoors.
I love it because I'm libertarian, so it's so great. Like,
hell yeah, bro.
Like,
stay out of my business, bro.
Yeah, whatever. Let live, be live. Like, it just do your own thing, man. Like, I'm totally all about it, and especially I think it's kind of cool with you being a falconry, like a falconer, is that you go above and beyond to do something different for means to fill the freezer. Like, it's just super cool that you added so many things into it to enjoy the outdoors every single day.
Yeah, it's fun. It's definitely easier to just go out with a 22 and shoot squirrels, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, you're not training a bird in a dark room, dude. Like, that thing's going to eat your face off, bro. Like, what do you mean? Of course it's easier, right?
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. Is there anywhere that anyone can kind of follow along kind of what you got going on? Facebook, Instagram, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram page. All of my social media handles are the same. It's NJ New Jersey _ falconry. So just NJ, the letters _ falconry, and that's on YouTube, Instagram. I have a TikTok that I barely use because they
suck.
Don't like. Same. They don't. Yeah, they suck. They don't like us outdoors people. I mean, I literally have my bird eating something, like not an animal, just like a piece of raw meat, like. And they flag it as violence and hate speech. And I'm like, dude, it's a bird. So like every chef that's cutting a chicken breast, like they should get flagged too. It's like it's like bizarre. It's very strange. So I'm not really into TikTok, but I have more followers on there. But so it's basically just social media, YouTube, and I just post what I'm doing with my birds. I'll post some old flights, that I thought were fun. I'll post them again, or my current bird, the training that I'm doing, or an awesome flight, or the way the dog did something fun. I'll post some fun little reels or videos about that. And I don't get too much involved in like the educational side of it, which I think I could. I'm just not like the best talker and like speaker. So I just kind of just let the birds and the nature stuff like just speak for itself on my pages. And that's kind of my thing,
I think it's most important, honestly, because the bird's going to show everything it needs to show.
Dude, nobody wants to see me. They just want to see my bird.
Right, exactly.
They like me for my bird.
Yeah, and you're not doing it for the selfies or the likes, so it doesn't matter.
Nah, man. I've been flying birds. That's another thing. I fly my birds my whole life. If social media ended tomorrow, I'd be out there the next day still flying my bird. I could care less.
Right.
But,
that's the same.
If people are enjoying it, that's it. I'll post about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Casey, we really appreciate you joining us, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we can have you back on. We'll see you, in the squirrel competition and whatever else we got going on. So
let's do it, man. And if you ever want to get out with your crew and you want to go on a falconry hunt and catch some game and have some fun, let me know, man. You're in Connecticut and I'm in Jersey. We can make something happen. So
we're going to have to do that.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast. All right, Casey.
I'll take anybody in the field.
We appreciate it, brother. Hopefully we can do this again soon. And for everyone else, thanks for taking the ride right here on the Outdoor Drive.